Okay, welcome to everyone who is joining us. We are continuing with the laws of Lashon Harah. Just fix that camera. We are on the positive commandments We are on the positive commandments of Lashon Harah that somebody violates when he speaks evil about one another. So we are on positive commandment number 5. Ulapa'amim over ayde kabalaso es Lashon Harah o harachilos gam al mitzvah dehochiach tochiach. There's a positive mitzvah to rebuke one's friend. If somebody sees somebody doing something which is against the Torah, there's a positive commandment, a positive mitzvah to rebuke him. Kigon imroa shechaveru maskil lesaper lo begnus chaveru v'hu yedei shedvarav yu nishmayim lahamasaper va'afilu im safek lo bazeh mechuyev min adin lochicho. If you see your friend about to speak Lashon Harah, he's about to speak evil about somebody else, there is a mitzvah to tell him not to. Kedei shelo yigmor achet, so that he shouldn't finish doing the sin. Ulechein imanichu ligmor sipura hara al chavero bevade over al mitzvah asezu. And if you let him finish his story, for sure you violate this mitzvah of rebuking your friend. Now this is talking about somebody, not the one who's speaking Lashon Harah, but the one who's listening to the Lashon Harah. So you see your friend about to say something negative about somebody else to you, there's a mitzvah to stop him, tell him, hey, you should not do that. Do not speak Lashon Harah. And you can't wait till he's done speaking. You have to do it before he's done speaking so he doesn't do it. Now, if you just sit there and don't rebuke him for doing that, then you violate this positive commandment of rebuking your friend. You didn't rebuke your friend. Now, the Chavetz Chaim writes in the bottom here in the Hagah that you can't wait till he does the sin, right, to rebuke him, to tell him not to, because then you, right, even if someone does a sin, there's still a mitzvah to rebuke him, but obviously you should really rebuke him before he does the sin. Like if you see your friend who's about to eat some bacon, you should tell him before he eats the bacon, hey, you shouldn't be eating that. That's against the Torah. You shouldn't wait till he eats the bacon and then rebuke him, but rather you should rebuke him before he eats the bacon. So too here, you should rebuke your friend before he actually speaks to Lashon Harah. Now, we'll talk about later, God willing, not today, but in subsequent classes, what do you do if that's impossible for whatever reason? I apologize. I'm just using Facebook has a new thing for live streaming, and I'm trying to figure it out as we're doing it. Okay. Let's go to Mitzvahs Aseh Vav, number 6. Everything that we've been discussing so far about the prohibitions of speaking Lashon Harah is even when you speak just between two people, right? You have two people and they're talking about somebody else. These prohibitions apply and these mitzvahs apply. But if you cleave to a group of people that are evil, and they sit and they speak Lashon Harah, they sit around and gossip all day, and you do that so that you can speak negatively about somebody, or you want to hear the negative things they're talking about people, you violate the mitzvah of ubat tidbak, or you don't fulfill that mitzvah. Uba pirish, what does it mean? Uba tidbak. Alzeh b'divrei Chazal lehizdabik bechachmei haTorah ulahasmin b'yeshivasim b'chol oifen mehaofanim afilecha v'lishos yistam talmidei chacham. The Torah says you should cleave to Hashem, which the rabbis say also means you should cleave to Torah scholars, and that means you should sit with them, and any way you can, you should try to hang out with them and cleave to them. You should eat with them, you should drink with them. V'lasas pragmatia l'talmid chacham, there's a mitzvah to do business with the Torah scholar. Ulhizdabik imahim b'chol minei chibor, and you should cling to them in any way possible. V'akol kadei shilmod b'maseh. Why? What's the purpose? What's the mitzvah of clinging to Torah scholars? So that you should learn from them, you should learn from their deeds. Ulechein b'vadai. Misha ose hepech, someone who does the opposite of this. Not only is he not cleaving to Torah scholars, but shemedavek atzmo im chabur shavarshayim, but he's hanging out with evil people. Over al mitzvah sezu, he violates this positive commandment. So somebody who hangs around evil people that sit and speak Lashon Harah all day, they are neglecting to fulfill the mitzvah of, and they are violating the mitzvah of cleaving to Torah scholars. So, right, because not only are they not cleaving to Torah scholars, but they are also cleaving to wicked people. So that's a mitzvah, and the reason of that mitzvah is that we hang around Torah scholars so that we learn from their deeds and we learn how to act. Right? I've been privileged to be around several Talmidei Chacham, several big Torah scholars, and you can learn so much from the way that they speak to people and how they conduct themselves. And even at the beginning of this video, I put a video of the Chavetz Chaim who wrote this sefer. And there's somebody actually who wrote a whole essay about all the halachas, all the laws that you can learn from the Chavetz Chaim about how he was walking for those few seconds, and about how he carried himself in a very humble way. So there's a mitzvah to cleave to Torah scholars and not to wicked people. Okay, mitzvah asay zayin. All these prohibitions apply even when you're not talking Lashon Harah in the Beis Medrash, in the study hall. But if you speak Lashon Hara or gossip, tale-bearing in the Beis Medrash, or Beis HaKnesses, or the synagogue, you violate the positive commandment. There's a positive commandment to fear Hashem's mikdash, to fear the temple. And our study hall has that aspect as the temple. There's a mitzvah to fear the temple in Jerusalem, to treat it respectfully and to have fear when you go there, and so too there's a mitzvah to fear the Beis HaMedrash, the study hall, and the synagogue. That you should be there with reverence and respect, and he's going to explain more. K'moshe mavur b'poskim, like it says in the halachic works. V'netztavinu bazeh hapasik lira memisha shochin bo. There's a mitzvah. The pasuk is teaching us to be afraid of the one who dwells there, meaning Hashem. We don't do business deals in synagogues because we're supposed to treat it with respect. Ki im shel mitzvah, only it's a business deal of a mitzvah. Could go in kupa shel tzedakah, right? Giving charity. You're allowed to auction off aliyahs in the shul because it's a mitzvah. We're trying to get money to support the synagogue. However, you're not allowed to do other business deals. You're not allowed to talk about business in the synagogue. All the more so, there's a prohibition to tell jokes and levity in the synagogue, v'sicha b'teila, and nonsense talk, just talk with no purpose, prattling on. It doesn't help, right? There's certain things that when you build a synagogue, you can make a condition that allow you to do certain things in the synagogue, but he's saying here, there is nothing you can do to modify the sanctity of a synagogue in this respect. Now, it's very interesting here. He's not even talking about during davening, right? Of course, we can't joke around and talk idly during prayers, but here he's talking about even just in the room of the synagogue or in the Beis Medrash when nobody's even praying. So he says, "Va'alachas kama v'kama the asur l'davar behem lashon hara or achilas mipnei amos Hashem yisbarach hashomer bo." He says that obviously, if these things are prohibited to do in a synagogue, then all the more so, how prohibited is it to speak lashon hara or achilas, an evil speech, in a synagogue, right? If there's a prohibition to speak nonsense words, right, to talk about the football game, you're not allowed to talk about football in sports in the synagogue. You're also not allowed to talk about business and all of those things. Those are parv. There's nothing wrong with talking about sports, if you're doing it to relax or whatever. I mean, there's a problem if you only talk about sports all day, but if you're talking about sports with your friend, there's nothing wrong with that. But doing that in the synagogue, that's a problem, because we're supposed to have fear of Hashem. And so all the more so, if that's a prohibition, then how much more so is speaking Lashon Hara in the synagogue? Misorach ha'atzmi, right? Ubezesh medaber mar ba'atzmu she'enu mamen she'kodesh baruch hu yishru shchinasu b'bayis hazeh ulekachu meiz panav afilu daber b'beis hamelech shelo kirtzon hamelech. It appears when you speak Lashon Hara in the synagogue that you're saying that you don't believe that God dwells there, right? Because how could you speak Lashon Hara in God's palace, right? You're in the synagogue where God dwells, and nevertheless, you're speaking Lashon Hara. So if somebody has the chutzpah to do that, he's kind of saying that he doesn't believe God's presence really dwells there. And that's a very, very serious sin. And as many have mentioned, I posted earlier from my Rosh Yeshiva, Ron Feldman, he believes that this is one of the reasons that we're being punished now. We can't go to synagogue because we didn't treat the synagogue with respect. We didn't treat davening with respect. So now we're punished that all of the synagogues are closed, and we should all accept upon ourselves to, when we're privileged to go back to shul, we should accept now upon ourselves that we're going to try our best to not speak for sure not to speak Lashon Harah in the synagogue, right? Even if we have a problem speaking Lashon Harah, evil speech, at least when we're in synagogue, we should refrain from it. And we should also refrain from talking about business matters or sports or other things and just joking around and not treating the synagogue with sanctity. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. Va'afilu halomdei Torah b'kvius b'beis hamedrash shehuter lahem la'echav v'lishtos b'beis hamedrash k'mavur b'Orach Chaim b'siman hanal mikol makam im yu nichshalim b'isur schok v'hitul o lashon hara rechilas b'beis hamedrash him over mal mitzvah say the mikdashai tiro levad mi'isuro ha'atzmi. Now he says that Torah scholars, right, people that learn all day, and they're always in the beis medrash. So usually, in general, right, there's exceptions, but a person, you can't even eat or drink in the beis medrash, in the study hall or the synagogue, because it's a holy place. However, Torah scholars, they spend their whole day there, so it will be too hard for them to constantly go outside every time they wanted to take a drink or eat, so they're allowed to eat there. So even them, who are there all day, and they have this exception, even they are not allowed to joke around in the synagogue. Because if they didn't eat and drink in the synagogue, they would neglect their studies. He says we're going to talk about later about a Talmud Chacham talking about what you would say is par of language. It's not good. It's not a mitzvah. It's not an avera. He's going to talk about that later. But he says from here that if we see, in general, that we're not even allowed to joke around and talk about mundane matters in the synagogue, like business and sports or whatever, so all the more so how egregious the sin is to speak Lashon Hara or Rechilas, an evil speech, in the Beis HaMedrash. Okay, and now we're up to Mitzvahs Aseh number 8, and we will, God willing, continue that tomorrow.